Say you are a seasoned economist. Is Chinese economy peaked?
I don't think so. I have tremendous confidence in Chinese policymakers.
New quality productive force.
These new sort of high quality productive forces is critical for China to continue to advance.
Everybody wants to peak now, but our government, our authorities seems very, very patient.
You don't want to overshoot because you may regret it later on.
Is globalization peaked?
No, globalization will go further.
Some people in the world want to have a globalization without China. Is that possible?
Short answer, no. There is no path to global growth and prosperity without China.
欢迎收看《顶级投资人》。本期节目嘉宾是渣打集团主席 José Viñals， 他有一个中文名字叫韦浩斯。José 拥有哈佛大学经济学博士学位，在斯坦福大学、西班牙央行、IMF 都有广泛的工作经历。2016年开始担任渣打集团主席。目前关于中国经济的未来和中国目前的政策取向，国际上有很多不同的声音。但是作为著名的经济学家和一个全球性银行的主席，José 在今天的采访中表达了他对中国当局政策和中国经济的坚定信心。他说，中国经济正稳健地行进在一条正确的道路上。So José, thank you very much for your time to take this.
My pleasure.
First of all, what's the purpose of this trip to Shanghai?
Well, the purpose of this trip is to bring the group board of Standard Chartered back to China, back to Shanghai. In addition to that, I can tell you that since the end of the pandemic, I have made 7 trips to mainland China and Hong Kong. And the reason is because mainland China and Hong Kong together are the biggest money-making engine for Standard Chartered. China is of strategic importance for our group.
Future of Chinese economy is a hot topic, even hot debate. José, you are a seasoned economist, now is a head of international banking group. So the question to you is, what's your take on that? Is Chinese economy peaked?
I don't think so. And this is good news for China and for the world, because China is a big contributor also to global growth. So, even if you look at last year, with all the talk about the difficulties in China, and there are challenges that are evident in the short term in terms of the property market, commercial real estate, in terms of some of the local government finances, in terms of weaker confidence, in terms of consumers, etc. But still, China has been able to grow by 5.2% last year. And this year, the government target is 5%. We are Standard Chartered are forecasting a growth rate for this year, which is very close to that target. So this is something which is good, very good. But for the medium and long term, we see that in spite of some of these challenges that I've mentioned, I have tremendous confidence in Chinese policymakers doing whatever is right in order to continue, grow, modernize, high quality growth and development for the Chinese economy, which will be the source of tremendous opportunity for every business in China, including international banks like ours.
You said that you have tremendous confidence on the policy makers to doing the right things for the Chinese economy. And after the 2 sessions, you may have heard of it. We have a new catchphrase here in China, which is called new quality productive force. So do you think, is that the right answer to Chinese economic problems now?
Yes, I think that productivity and talent are keys for China. You have to invest. You have to continue developing human capital, and that innovative culture, cultivating these new economy sectors, these new sort of high quality productive forces, is critical for China to continue to advance, especially when the demographic contribution to growth is going to be negative rather than positive. So having government policies which are orientated towards the new economy sectors, and as I mentioned, facilitated the transition of the traditional sectors are extremely important. And that being the case, as I said, I'm confident, very confident, that China will continue to grow significantly and provide great opportunities for every foreign investor coming into China.
We have some short-term economic problem, and at the same time, we're doing some mid-term, long-term structural change. During this process, what should we do to maintain the whole economy stable?
Well, I think that the strategy that Chinese authorities are executing is appropriate. You have some specific interventions to address the issues in the housing sector, so that over time you provide a flow, and then you let the sector sort of basically, resolve its problems, and then afterwards stabilize, and also some of the measures regarding the equity market. So these specific policy actions are very important. Beyond that, you have the broader monetary and fiscal policy framework, which has been supportive of the attainment of the growth targets in, for example, this year. And that's a sort of moderate, reasonable policy support, bearing in mind that you don't want to do something which is type of a big bang thing, which deepens some imbalances in the economy. And then over the medium term, going back to what we were saying, sort of putting the focus on the dynamic role of the private sector, of dynamizing sort of state-owned enterprises, and then putting in place the conditions for domestic investment and foreign investment to contribute to the transformation of the economy, I think that's critical.
You know, everybody wants the cake now. They need some quick boost to our economy, but our government, our authorities seems very, very patient. Do you think their patience can be paid off?
I think that you have to be moving the right direction at the right speed, and you don't want to overshoot because you may regret it later on. So I think that moving at this pace decisively, but moving at forward, I think this is something which is important. And some sectors need to do their own digestion of some of their issues, be the property sector, be in sectors where there may be some excess capacity internally, and then there is a natural competition process that will resolve those things in a natural manner over time. All of this, I think, is a very natural development, and the fact that China has been handling the property sector issue without running into the very problematic situations that other economies have had in the past, I think it's a good proof of the overall dynamism of the Chinese economy and how things are being handled.
You said in various occasions that globalization is a force for good. But after the pandemic, people say maybe we are entering a new phase, which is called deglobalization. So is globalization peaked?
No, globalization will go further. When you look at the facts, even with these frictions there, what you can see is that global trade has continued in volume, has continued to improve. If you look at where is it now compared to the pre-COVID, it's gone up. And last year it was very subdued. This year is expected to go up by 3.3%. Trade in goods. Trade in services is growing faster, and trade in digital services is growing even faster. So globalization certainly has not peaked. What we must acknowledge is that now there are forces which are leading to a globalization which is in transition. Globalization is changing nature. And we need to make sure that globalization is perfected, not abandoned. So globalization now needs to be perfected because it needs to be more inclusive, it needs to be more sustainable.
We also heard some noises that some people in the world want to have a globalization without China. Is that possible, first of all?
Short answer, no. There is no path to global growth and prosperity without China. The world needs China, and China needs the world.
Yes.
So this is why the opening up, the continuing opening up of China, it's so important for China, but it's also very important for the world, because China is providing the world with solutions to drive in a more sustainable manner, to produce more renewable energies, to transition to net zero in a more feasible and faster manner. So it's a win-win. Globalization was a win-win in the past needs to be a win-win in the future. So for those people who say, let's deglobalize, let's write China off, I'm sorry, this is not possible. We are too united to disjoint ourselves at this stage.
Maybe they have some alternatives like India, replace China with India.
I think India can contribute more towards globalization, and that would be good for India and for the world. But that doesn't have to be at the expense of China. The world needs both. In fact, the world needs everybody. This is not a zero-sum game where if you do better, I do worse. It is that we can all do better together. And the world showed that in the previous stages of globalization. So let's make sure that we, as I mentioned before, perfect globalization, making it more inclusive and sustainable. But again, it will deliver win-wins for all the parties which are involved.